Hey there, Evan Nathaniel Grimm. We have a powerful reset on the way with a Libra solar eclipse coming up. So this will be my forecast for that eclipse. I'm going to talk about the overall themes and how you can actually harness it to your benefit. Eclipses don't have to be scary, even though they may be presented that way sometimes. So I have a lot of experience with eclipses. And so I will be talking today about, again, what are some of the karmic themes, but also how can you approach it so that good things actually happen and it's productive for you and not just chaotic as some eclipses may, again, sort of feel. So I'm going to share my screen so we can look at the eclipse together and just to illustrate how powerful this really is. So the actual eclipse will happen Saturday, October 14th at 10:55 a.m. Pacific time. Now, a solar eclipse means this is a new moon. So as with any new moon, you will experience a new beginning. However, because the lunar nodes are involved, it will be karmic and maybe unexpected a little bit, but certainly pivotal. And we're dealing with really the cardinal signs. But I mean, every sign will be affected, but this is activating the cardinal signs, certainly those axes. But again, I want to stress this. Everybody will be affected by the eclipse in their own unique way. Anyway, so cardinal signs, anytime we talk about cardinal signs, we're talking about, again, executive action, decisiveness, management, delegation, and initiation. So starting things. But with Aries and Libra, Aries is the self, the individual, the action, the competition, the assertion, and the courage. And Libra is about relationships, diplomacy, cooperation, and trust. The eclipse, it's that karmic reset and kind of like changing sports or changing the channel or changing the conversation. It's a complete it's like a new timeline, a new energy, a new field, a new environment that you step into. And it's kind of like, how did I end up here? You go through a door on the side, you're in a different museum, you're in a different simulation. Like eclipses really do feel that way. It's a little bit bizarre. It can be a little jarring at times. But again, these new timelines can be for our highest good. Now, in this case, struggles that may have persisted throughout the summer months are now placed into a context, I think. So we had some struggles this summer. A summer, I mean, in the Northern Hemisphere. But basically, like throughout June, July, August, and even September, there was a lot of like head scratching moments here because we had Mercury, Venus, a bunch of other planets retrograde. We still have some retrogrades, but Mercury and Venus being retrograde at the same time felt like there were a lot of blockades to growth, lack of clarity. But I think by the time of this eclipse, we know the direction we have to go in. And before I kind of get into the rest of the themes, I want to stress that manifestation is possible during eclipses. But that manifestation is only through something called inspired action, which I will talk about in full detail at the end of the video. But I just want to emphasize this. It's really important to watch along to what the energies are here because you can utilize it. So it's like we know the direction we have to go in after the summer. So why not? Why not sort of manifest that new direction? Of course, through a very specific means. So anyways, we just came out of an Aries full moon, September 29th. That was powerful, but also intense. Many people, probably went their own direction. Some people may have compromised, but I'm sure a lot of people watching this decided to break something off, whether that was a relationship with an employer or a friend or even maybe a spouse. But this can set you up for a productive eclipse. And it really depends on how honest you've been so far, with the full moon in Aries and now Mars square Pluto. If you've affirmed your identity and independence, regardless of how scary that is or how self-conscious that makes you, then, I think that you're stepping into your power. So authenticity serves your highest good and your best possible timeline. So really the process here is that the more you speak your mind, the better relationships you'll find. That's really the process. That's the sequence. So continue to speak your mind, continue to channel that Aries North node. So getting rid of self-consciousness, not worrying so much about the perception of what you're saying or how people will embrace or not embrace your new identity. Now, what helps is that Mercury and Venus are well beyond their post-shadow phases by the time of this eclipse. So that's still, especially Venus. So that's delivering increased clarity regarding communication and relationships. But it's almost like a showdown here between Venus and Saturn. Venus was almost fearful of Saturn in the way that I felt it this summer, because it retrograded, stationed retrograde just before the opposition with that planet of Saturn, which is all about setbacks, pressure, commitment, delays, but also manifestation. So it's almost like Venus is finally entering the fray in Virgo here. And Venus is the chart ruler. So it's actually the most important planet in this eclipse. Now, Venus in Virgo raises standards in relationships. And opposite Saturn, people are going to take a cold, hard look at the viability of their partnerships. This does include work-related matters. So around this time, if you look at the United States economy, for example, the sort of savings, the savings from the past few years based on the government stimulus and the handouts has been wiped out. So the government estimates that by the end of September 2023, those savings, again, from the stimulus and those financial packages, have been wiped out. So we may see some ripple effects there in the markets, or some evidence of, economic shifts in somewhat of a challenging direction. But I think that if nothing were to impact the labor markets around this time, then I think the economy, should be okay actually until next spring. But it's very possible that there's a lot of pressure here. And there is a lot of pressure on the economy, whether you look at inflation, you look at the price of housing, again, the draining of savings from the last few years. So absolutely, I don't want to downplay that. I actually do believe there is a destabilization possibility here economically, but I want to focus a little bit more on relationships for this video. So because I do think that will affect people more broadly. Now, also Pluto is now direct at this time, and Saturn is just a few weeks away from stationing direct. So this means we're getting a better sense of what we need in the long run to support our ongoing transformation. Because Saturn is that long term and Pluto is that transformation. So with Venus opposite Saturn, it's kind of like, okay, what do I'm stepping into my identity, into my authenticity. So how does that change my view of all my relationships at this point? But let's not forget that we're talking about Libra. Libra is ultimately about balance. So how can we achieve the balance in our lives so that we're able to stabilize and actually succeed in the long term without spiraling? So if you're a social media creator, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're, working in investment banking, whatever you're doing, it's if you feel burned out right now, it's take a moment to think about, okay, do I have to just take a day off every week where I'm not working, I'm not engaging in that part of my business or that business at all? I'm focusing on just fun, creativity, spirituality. I think a lot of people here are going to be recalibrating that. So this could actually be the striking of a balance that you've needed for a long time. So maybe you've been spiraling out of control, the past few years, working from home, sticking to your work and your process, and overworking yourself because that's what you can control. That's what you can focus on. But it's with Libra, it's come on, let's just go painting in the park for a day. Let's unplug for a day. So I think that for a lot of people, this eclipse is all right, what I'm doing right now is untenable. The way I'm trying to juggle all these things. With Saturn, it's think about the long term. If you want to make money in the long term, or if you want to have that relationship last in the long run, you have to make some sacrifices. You can't do, if I'm using my own example, if you're an astrologer, it's I can't do 20 readings a week, forever. That would be insane. So it's all about okay, let's take a step back in order to make sure we can go forward and, not be a cautionary tale. So anyways, if you felt you're losing control in late September and even into early October, this eclipse is all right, let's use that Libra. Let's balance out in favor, though, for the sake of that Venus in Virgo, which is yeah, I want your long-term success. I care about, you incrementally climbing to the top of that mountain. Now, other aspects here, the eclipse is opposite Chiron, and I think Mars is really still square Pluto in a lot of ways, but it is in its domicile of Scorpio at that point. Uranus is in conjunct to the new moon, and Neptune continues to be in conjunct to the south node. So there's a little bit of confusion still related to relationships. Certainly there can be, but with Uranus in conjunct, there's a desire to reinvent a little bit. Some key questions to ask yourself on this eclipse: what do my relationships need? in order to escape either burnout or stagnation? How are relationships either blocking or supporting my transformation? Am I capable of committing to this long term? And if you're in a relationship, are we aligned or misaligned on values? Because Venus is values. And am I achieving balance in my life, or am I completely out of whack? Now, remember, again, Venus is the chart ruler, opposite Saturn. Now, Venus and Virgo raises standards in all ways. So it's like if you've been in a relationship that's been surviving off of like words of affirmation and like really simple things like that, it's not really, it's a different standard is being applied now, a much higher standard. So it's like, can you actually do the work? Can you either work on yourself or work on this relationship and be a true team? Or are we not a team? So Libra, it's really concerned with relationships. So it's like, if you're not in like an us framework, then it's going to fracture. And that includes your, maybe your professional job. So like maybe you feel like your company isn't valuing you. So a lot of people are going to have a schism here between their personal values and the values of a spouse or a partner or a company. And so that schism will reveal that that dynamic is not sustainable. So it's like, if it's not sustainable, this would be the time to walk away. Now, alternatively, other people are confirming the relationship. So I could see engagements, weddings, ceremonies of all kinds here. But I want to emphasize this one more time. Venus in Virgo plays a different game than Venus in Leo. Venus in Virgo doesn't care if you compliment somebody. Venus in Virgo cares if you actually show up and commit to acts of service and, doing the chores, giving the gifts, being thoughtful, asking people about if they need something, because Virgo is about service. So it's like, if you're not willing to serve that relationship selflessly, then it's probably over. So this eclipse is really demanding a lot of you, but it's like, maybe if you value that relationship enough or that job enough, you may have to give some things up to achieve that Libra balance. So it's like, if I want to like make it in this job, maybe I have to give up my nightlife habits. If I want to make it in this relationship, maybe I have to give up on my workaholic nature. So again, if you've done this work already, the shadow work and being really honest and candid with people about where your pain points are, and even if not, start today. So talk about your pain points. Talk very honestly with your partner, your company, your friend about where the tension lies, what the pain points are. Speak your truth, speak your needs, and see if you can root cause this. See if you can come to a solution and a reconciliation, because they might be thinking the same thing as you, or your employer might agree that, like, the way you're staffed on these projects is problematic. So do the work now as you're watching this video to, again, have that sort of like honest conversation, so that the eclipse is more of that reset and a positive reset, a new beginning. So last thing I want to talk about is my manifestation sort of techniques. So again, what is not really a good idea during eclipses is intention setting, where you write in a journal like everything you want to accomplish in that lunar cycle. So lunar cycles, which occur, over the course of a month, that full moon happens 2 weeks later. So usually you would set intentions really on 2 timelines. Usually you would set intentions for a new moon over the course of 2 weeks, and then also 6 months, because 2 weeks later we have the full moon. 6 months later we have, the full moon in that same sign. So there will be a Libra full moon 6 months from now in April. And, you may experience an arc there, but it's like, you can't actually determine that arc necessarily. Like, you can't meticulously plan it, because with the South Node and the North Node involved here, it's like we're walking away from things somewhat through the energy of just that exact moment in time. So what I mean by this is, you can practice what's called inspired action. So inspired action means there's emotions coming in around this time of October 14th that compel you suddenly, as if there was an epiphany, to take a certain direction. So it's like, eclipses are not like reasons to go into hiding or reasons to be fearful. It's more a reason to be open, an open channel to anything that comes in, and allow those sort of sensations, that intuition, to strengthen. And then you can listen to your spirit guides. You can listen to your own voice or whatever's coming in, and take an action, in that moment. And that action will be very pivotal. So it's like you are manifesting, but just through a different means than usual. So for example, like the lunar eclipse in Scorpio back in May of 2022, literally during that full moon, that lunar eclipse, at the exact hour, I posted a video in which I completely shifted my content strategy. I completely talked about the zodiac sign in that video in a different way, at a different time in the video, and the video went viral, and it kind of gave me a model to reach more people actually through a different type of content format. So I changed my content format, and that lunar eclipse was in my 5th house where I have Scorpio, and it actually allowed me to build my business and to go full time. So it's like if I hadn't posted that video at the moment of the lunar eclipse, which everyone, and even astrologers were saying, oh, it's a really, really, it's really negative to like look at the eclipse, like, and to stand outside and look. I looked at that moon. I walked outside. Yeah, it was a red moon. So what? You know, it's like Scorpios, we're not afraid of transformation, maybe. So maybe other signs would be, but it's like, you know, the honest answer is like, you know, just don't buy into the fear. Don't buy into the fear, because like eclipses are, again, it's like, that's the time. That's almost like the time to make a big move. You know, that's the time to shift yourself onto a higher and better timeline. So again, inspired action, look it up, study it. Inspired action is absolutely possible during this lunar or this solar eclipse. Now, I'm going to be posting what the solar eclipse means for each zodiac sign on my newsletter in a couple days. So check my newsletter out. The link is down below. I have other lots of other content through that newsletter that you can subscribe to. So I have educational content about Saturn, for example. I have other forecasts that I've posted. I have more like think pieces about the astrology of 2024, the Neptune-Saturn conjunction coming up in 2026. So there's a lot of content that I'm pushing out, and I'd really appreciate if you subscribed. I also am teaching about astrology in October. So we're doing intro, intermediate, and advanced classes. So if you want to learn astrology from me in my precise and incisive sort of way, then take my courses. This is the 4th time I've taught these, so I have a lot of experience with explaining astrology in terms that you can understand, and I can meet you at whatever level you're at. Also, if you want a reading from me, I'm sold out for this year, but February 2024, I do have spots open. I'm also going to be hosting another retreat next year, so look out for that. So there's a ton of links below. You know, keep track of them. Keep track of my pages. Also subscribe to my YouTube, of course. I'm closing in on 20,000 subscribers, which I appreciate. So anyways, hope you enjoy your solar eclipse experience, and take care.